Alright guys, so for this podcast, start on this page, the page that's titled Point Slope Form. Okay? All last chapter we focused on point or slope intercept form, and that's the y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope, b is the y-intercept, right? And we can use that when we have the slope and the intercept. Alright, but what if we don't have those things? Okay? Then we would have to use point slope form, and the name tells you why you're going to use it if you have a point and a slope. Alright, so like it says here, while slope intercept form is arguably the easiest form for graphing a line, point slope form is arguably the most useful form when writing the equation of a line. So what is point slope form? Alright, so instead of the y equals mx plus b, this is now the point slope form. Alright, it's y minus y1 equals m times, in parentheses, x minus x1. And once again, m is still the slope, and the x1, y1 is the point on the line. Okay, so that's the point they're going to give you. It's not the intercept point, but it's just another random point on the line. Alright, so once again, to write an equation of point slope, all you need is one point on the line, any point, but you still need the slope. We do not need the y-intercept, because if we had the y-intercept, you would use slope-intercept, not point slope. Alright, so here's how you would do this. Example problem. Write the equation of the line in point slope form that has a slope of 3 and goes through the point 2, 4. Alright, so what we're going to do is, so they've kind of broken it down here. So here we can see our slope is 3. Alright, so in this formula, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, we would plug in the 3 for the m. Okay? And then the only other piece of information they gave us was the point, and the point is 2, 4. So remember, on a point, the first number in the coordinate is the x value. So they took the x part of the point and plugged it into the x1. And last thing to plug in is they took the y value. Okay, remember the second number is always the y value. And so they took that 4 for the y and plugged it into this side where it's y minus y1. Alright, and so that's really just how you plug it in. Once you memorize your formula, you're just plugging things in. So the way it would look once we plugged it in, it would be y minus 4 equals 3 times x minus 2. And that is, that's the point slope form. Okay? Alright. So let's do some practice here. Okay. So once again, we want to have this memorized, so it might help to write the formula again. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay. So if we do this, all right, once you have the formula memorized, it's really simple. So in this case, we have a slope of 4, and it goes to the point 3, 7. So it's going to be y minus, my y is 7, equals, slope is 4, parentheses, always x minus, and then the x of my point is 3. And that's it. Okay. Next one, we have a slope of negative 1, and it's going to the point negative 2, 1. So we always start it off, y minus, it's always y minus, and plug in your value, it's a 1, equals. Now the slope is a negative 1, make sure you plug that value in, whether it's positive or negative. Now be careful here. X, it's always x minus, right? Always subtraction, so just put the x minus. Now plug in the value. This is where people might get a little tripped up. It's a negative 2. Yeah, there's a subtraction sign, but that's part of the formula. You have to plug in the negative 2 after. It's not x minus a positive 2, it's x minus a negative 2. So then, that looks a little funny. We can just clean it up like this. Y minus 1 equals negative 1. And x minus a negative 2 really just means x plus 2. Okay? Because that's going to make it easier when we take it a step further on the next page. Alright? Next one here. M equals, the slope is negative 9. It goes to the point 4, negative 8. Okay? So here, always y minus. Well, it's y minus what? That's a negative. So after the minus, you got to put your negative 8. Equals, negative 9 is the slope. Parenthesis, x minus, and the x is 4. Let's clean up this double negative. Y minus negative 8 really just means y plus 8 equals negative 9 parentheses x minus 4. Okay, just that simple. Alright, now down here it's going to look a little different, but it's the same process. Okay, now look at our slope. Our slope is 2/3. It's a fraction. Doesn't matter, it's a fraction. Okay, we're going to do it the same way, and it goes to the point 11/7. So here, always start off with y minus. Here it's 7 equals. Now my slope is 2/3, so I'm going to plug in 2/3 outside the parentheses. X minus 11. No double negatives, we're good. So like you can see, even though it's a fraction, it doesn't matter. You just plug it in where it goes. Alright, this one has a slope of -1/2, and it goes to the point 10, -5. So this will be y minus -5 equals -1/2 is the slope, parentheses x minus 10. Let's go back and clean up this double negative. So it turns to y plus 5 equals -1/2 x minus 10. Okay? Alright, last one for point slope. This has a slope of 4/5, and it goes to the point -1/9. So we're going to do y minus, our y is 9, equals 4/5 is the m, we plug that in, parentheses x minus, -1. Let's clean it up a little bit. Y minus 9 equals 4/5 times x plus 1. Okay, so once again, if they give you, it's all based on what they give you. If they give you the slope and an intercept, you would use slope intercept y equals mx plus b. But here they're giving us the slope in a point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so that's how you just set it up into point slope. But typically, we'll have to take it a step further. So here's what we're going to do now. On the next page, we're going to take it a step further by converting it into slope-intercept form. Alright, so we're going to do what we've been doing, but now we're going to go further and we're going to finish up with what you did all last chapter, mx plus b. Okay? So this one says let's take the answer to the example problem above and convert it. Let me go back and get the example problem. The one we did here was y minus 4, 3x minus 2. Okay, so this is from the example on the front side. Alright, so this is where we had already plugged in the slope and the values of the point. Okay, so to convert it to slope-intercept, really all we do is solve it. Okay, so you're going to solve it like a normal equation. So if I scan my equation, how should we start here? We always, if we can, always distribute first. So that's the very first thing we're going to do. So this side will still be y minus 4, and it's going to equal 3 times x is 3x. And this is a 3 times, remember the sign in front, -2 is a -6. Okay? And now, remember, if we're going to do slope-intercept, we are solving for y. We're trying to get the y by itself. So look at the side of the y now. To get it by itself, I got to get rid of the -4. I'll do the opposite, which is +4. Okay? Now, once again, this is kind of combining your like terms. I'm not going to put the +4 here, because this is an x term. I can't do 3x plus 4. But I can do the +4 with the -6. Those are like terms. That cancels out. I'm going to have to write it over here. So now y is by itself, and we are left with 3x. -6 plus 4 is -2. So you see, once we set it up into point slope, when we solve for y, this turns it into slope-intercept form. Okay? Alright, let's do a few more practice. So it says now practice converting your answers to problems 1 to 3. So let's kind of come back here. Number 1 was y minus 7 equals 4x minus 3. Alright, so this was from number 1 on the front. Oops, let me double check that. Yeah. Okay. Alright, so if we were to solve this one, first thing we should do once again is distribute. So now we have y minus 7 equals 4x minus 12. This time this is -12. Solving for y, get the y by itself, so we'll do +7 on both sides. We're left with y equals 4x minus 5. So the slope, as you can see, is still 4, but now the y-intercept is at negative 5. Okay? Alright, let's go get number 2 from the front side. So this was the one where we cleaned up the double negative, right? This is why you want to do this, because it's going to make it easier to solve it now. So it's y minus 1 is negative 1 x plus 2. Alright. Okay, so you see here, once again, this is the one where we had that double negative. It said x minus negative 2. When I distribute that, these negatives are going to be confusing. So now that it's just a plus, when I come and distribute this, it's going to be less confusing. Alright, so y minus 1 on the left side equals, I'm distributing a negative 1. Negative 1 times x is negative x. If you put negative 1x, that's fine. Negative 1 times positive 2 is negative 2. Solve for y again, adding 1 on both sides. Those are gone. Y equals negative x minus 1. So the slope is negative 1. The y-intercept is negative 1. Okay? Alright, last example. Let's get number 3 from the front. Number 3 was y plus 8 equals negative 9 x minus 4. Double check that. Okay. So this one, once again, we have the plus 8 here because on the when we plugged in our y minus y1, this is where we had that double negative, right? So because I had that double negative, once again, if I leave it as a double negative, it's going to be confusing when I solve it. So that's why we got the plus, okay? So always start with distribution. Left side is simply just y plus 8 equals negative 9 times x is negative 9x. Negative 9 times negative 4 is positive 36. Isolate the y to get rid of plus 8. The opposite is minus 8. So we're left with y equals negative 9x plus 24. Alright, so the slope is still negative 9. But now we know that it'll cross the y-axis at positive 24. Okay? Alright, so these next 6, alright, I want you to try those on your own. Here's basically how this is laid out. You're first going to convert it. Remember, we can't go straight to slope-intercept because we don't have the slope and the intercept. We have the slope, we don't have the intercept. So to get there, so because you got the point and the slope, you're first going to convert it to point-slope form for PS. Once you got it set up, you're going to solve it, and your final answer in slope-intercept will be here, SI for slope-intercept. Okay, so pause the podcast, work these out, replay the podcast, and I'll have the answers put up. If you got anything wrong, come check with me before we go on. Alright? So pause and do these 6. Alright, so here are the answers for those 6 practice problems where you first converted to point slope and then finally to slope intercept. Alright, so definitely start here with the point slope and then see that you converted it properly here. Okay? Once again, if you need some extra time to check these, pause it on the screen so you can see all these while you're checking it. Again, before you go on to the next section, if you have any of these wrong, maybe you might have some trouble with the fractions, come see me before you go any further. Alright, so I'm going to end the podcast. So if you're not done checking, pause it so you have it on the screen before you go on. Alright?